mother and father. Lord God, I know they both for resting in glory. Good God Almighty, somewhere around the throne. One of these days I'll
This is a special tribute to Los Angeles, California's unsung gospel legends, the sweet singing Cava-leers.
Nicodemus, you must be born again. Nicodemus.
The Sweet Singing Cava-leers is a gospel group that didn't receive their just due in gospel music. The sweet singing, down-home sounding Cava-leers have a history stretching back over 65 years. Our story begins with Brother Walter Cook, founder, tenor, and manager of the group. Cook was born in the parish of Tangipahoa in southeastern Louisiana on March 3, 1933. Cook's grandfather was a minister. The family attended Quinn's Chapel Methodist Church. Cook switched from Methodist to Baptist later on in life. The young Cook sang in the Quinn Chapel Choir and attended the Tangipahoa Parish Training School. At training school, Cook took up with cousins Cleon Knighton, Monroe Hampton, and Maxie Knighton, and formed a gospel singing group. The unnamed group stuck together throughout Cook's junior and senior high school years, performing at local church functions. After high school graduation, the group disbanded and Cook's cousins went their separate ways. Cook moved to Southern California and joined the Army's 4th Division stationed at Fort Lewis. The division had a gospel singing group who sang on bass. The quartet was organized by the chaplain who took the singers with him to perform wherever he was invited to hold service. When Cook saw the group, he wanted to join them. Going backstage, he introduced himself. The fellas wanted a man with more experience, but when they heard him sing, they took him on. The chaplain's quartet schooled Cook in the ways of harmonies. Cook sang in the group until his discharge. Expecting fellow members in the group to relocate to California, Cook waited for their inevitable discharges. The quartet had made plans to continue as a gospel group after all had left the service. But this never came about, and Cook joined the Macedonians after his play mother took him along to hear the group sing. Another key figure in the development of the sweet singing Cava-leers was Tommy Beeson. Tommy Beeson has a fascinating history in gospel quartet music. He was born on December 11, 1917 in Meridian, Mississippi. Beeson, still a young boy, moved south with his family on what is now Interstate 59 to settle in the small town of Laurel. All attended the Calvary Baptist Church. Beeson's mother, Laura Johnson Thomas, was an outstanding gospel soloist who gave recitals at various local churches and church-sponsored events. Beeson sang in the Calvary Baptist Church Choir where he was picked to sing in the Calvary Junior Quartet.
I believe that I'll go back home. I believe that I'll go back home. I made up in my mind I'm going back home.
The aggregation was set up to train aspiring singers. Most would move up into the Calvary Senior Quartet. Beeson served in the juniors between 1925 and 1934 and traveled throughout Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana during this time. The Calvary Baptist Choir was brought along under the direction of one of Beeson's uncles. James Moore, a prominent local real estate broker and dentist, managed the Cavalry Juniors. Moore became quite a legend around Mississippi for being able to pull teeth with a 10-cent coin. Moore took the Juniors on the road and used them as an opening act before amazing everyone with his miraculous bad molar extractions. Later on, the Juniors traveled without the dental shenanigans. The Cavalry Juniors were composed of Beeson, John Holland, Samuel Holland, and Albert Lee Davis. In 1935, Beeson sang in yet another Laurel quartet whose name, if they had one, is long forgotten. In the late 1930s, Beeson joined the Civilian Conservation Corps out of Forest, Mississippi. He then joined the Conservation Singers, a group made up of Corps members. The Conservation Singers at this point were comprised of Beeson, Perry Ellis, a fellow by the name of Leroy who sang tenor, and Johnny Gibbs. The Conservation Singers did very well and got to tour quite a bit. When the United States were drawn into World War II, Beeson joined the Army. Shortly after the war, Beeson moved to Los Angeles and sang in the Golden Jubilees. A friend he had met in the service introduced Beeson to the group. The boys were organized in Los Angeles around 1943. Most of the quartet's original members were from Shreveport, Louisiana. In the late 1940s, the group became the Golden Jubilee Chorus by adding more members. Beeson sang in the Golden Jubilees for quite some time before moving on to the Macedonians. The Macedonians were an extremely popular quartet around Los Angeles, who recorded for the Tiny Octave label during the early 1950s. Group members included Walter Cook, Willie Morgan, Norris Talton, Willie Cotton, and Alexander Stamps. Sometime around 1954, Beeson hitched up with the Smith Jubilees out of St. Louis, Missouri. The Smith Jubilees, then comprised of Walter Simmons, the original member, James Brown, Alfonso Smith, Jimmy Adams, and Lee Manley, were one of Los Angeles's leading and most inspiring quartets, with a long history on wax. The group's best recordings were cut in the late 1940s for Modern Records. 3 selections can be sampled on a various artists CD collection issued in 1995 on the English Ace label, Get On Board Little Children, the Modern Gospel Recordings Ace 537. In 1955, after an argument which flared with irreconcilable differences, the Macedonians broke up. Beeson, along with Walter Cook, Norris Talton, and Willie Morgan from the then-current Macedonians lineup, formed the original Cava-leers. Ex-Macedonian Willie Cotton joined late.
I'm a pilgrim, and I'm traveling on with Jesus. Lord have mercy. I got one more thing I want you to know tonight, children. I want you to know God is real. God is real. The reason I know He's real, somebody woke me up this
In
morning.
1956, the quartet enlarged with the addition of tenor Andy Williams. The outfit turned down offers that would take them too far away from home. All were in the business of raising families. Their first recording venture came about in 1958 when the group waxed for Norma Rae's label out of Hollywood. BMI told the guys they would have to change their name because a white outfit with the same moniker was registered with them. The group switched from Cava-leers to Cava-leers. Ray released 145, Cross of Jordan backed with the Old Gospel Chestnut. The group's second release was produced by gospel DJ Joe Matthews. A year later, they recorded one single for Reverend Clarence Welsh's Tiny Sons of the Cross label, according to Walter Cook, an operation headquartered at Welsh's church on Vernon and Morgan Streets. Welsh, a popular gospel radio personality, had taken the group to a tiny recording studio at 131st and Central to record in the suite, By and By. The 3 releases put the group's name out there, but little work came about as a result.
This is what I want to let you know right now. Lord have mercy today. When will I give?
Sometime in the late 1950s, the group decided to promote themselves by issuing a vanity single on the appropriately tagged R record label out of Long Beach Avenue, R305. The top side featured Walter Cook singing When I'm Crossing Jordan, a rewrite of Stand By Me done up with pumping bass and echo-chambered audio presence, in keeping with the trend of the times. The flip, You Must Be Born Again lead by Andy Williams, sweeps along at a steady pace with more prominent pumping bass singing, in addition to interesting and complex harmonic changes. Because the single was pressed in a very limited edition, copies of the record are extremely tough to find. Cook and the boys, after yet another name change to the Sweet Singing Cava-leers, then decided to form their own vanity label, Cava-leer Records. 3 modestly successful singles later, the group was noticed by Johnny Otis. Otis was still under contract with Capitol Records as both recording artist and talent scout at the time. Cook states that Otis took the group to Hollywood and recorded them at the Capitol Studios. We had just come off tour and were down at the studio all night cutting songs for an album, says Cook. Otis remembers the guys recording a tune called Every Day Is Like Sunday. The group had to wait 18 years before they heard the fruits of their labor.
Oh, yeah. If you can't make it through a storm.
In 1978, Johnny Otis, who had somehow acquired master tapes from Capitol, released an album on his own gospel tone label, entitled California Gospel Caravan, Live. The live church compilation included artists who had appeared on Otis's 1963 traveling gospel caravan. Among these were Billy Preston, the LA All-Stars, Cava-leers, and Spiritual Trojans. 2 cuts by the Cava-leers with audience overdubs Jesus, He's My King and Prodigal Song from the 1960 Capitol sessions were also included. When Cook confronted Otis concerning the delay of the released songs, he was furious. Issuing these songs didn't do us any good, says Cook. We had changed our style and didn't know how to sing them no more. In 1961, Mercury expressed interest in recording the group, but this would mean extensive on-the-road touring with Brooke Benton and the Platters, so the group rejected the offer. In 1969, the group recorded for brother Duke Henderson of Radio KGFJ and Zerb on his Henderson label, but little is remembered of the outcome. Brother Henderson put out one album collection of the Sweet Singing Cava-leers, entitled Peace and Love, Gospel Corner LP 503. It should be noted that the Reverend Willie T. Sneed, who had served in the Cava-leers for 6 years, also recorded as a solo entity for Henderson at the time. His one album release, Headline Maker or Headline.
Everywhere I go, everywhere I be, I'll take the Lord with me.
The Sweet Singing Cava-leers played the Steve Allen Playhouse, the LA Sports Arena, the Embassy and Shrine Auditoriums, the Coconut Grove, Ambassador Hotel, and various other locations around California. It was not until the 1980s, when the group members' children had grown and the group's members were secure in their full-time jobs, that the Sweet Singing Cava-leers took to the road for extensive touring. In 1980, the group was discovered by the late Reverend James Cleveland, who was both talent scout and recording star on Herman Lubinsky's Savoy Records, out of Elizabeth, New Jersey. Savoy issued one album entitled Time Is Drawing Nigh. This superb collection includes beautifully rendered ballads sung in the style of a bygone age. Outstanding charts include There Is No Failure in God, I'm Not Ashamed, I'm His, He's Mine, a reprise of In the Sweet, I'll Never Forget, and If You Can't Make It, Throw the Storm.
Take you back to the place.
The group at this point included Cook, Beason, Williams and Haskell Holmes, who had waxed for H&W and Peacock Records in Houston, with the Gospel Consolators, first tenor, Chester McLean, second lead, and Reverend George W. Easley, guest soloist. Accompaniment featured Tony Sennett, lead guitar, Brother Roy Person, drums, Bruce Carter, and A. Jones, bass, Darrell Hardy, organ, and Tony Coleman, Fender Rhodes. Produced by Cleveland, the session was cut in Hollywood over one night, 6 p.m. through to 5 a.m. The album had great potential and would have sold well if it was promoted aggressively enough. The Sweet Singing Cava-leers cut 3 albums for the Great Vision label during the 1980s. These included the outstanding Having a Good Time and Sweet as Ever collections. The quartet stayed with Great Vision for 10 years. 1994 was a happening year for the Sweet Singing Cava-leers. They were the first group to appear at the House of the Blues in Hollywood concert at the Roosevelt Hotel and made innumerable appearances on radio and TV. The outfit also signed a deal with Cold Wave Records in Inglewood and put out a CD entitled It's a Blessing, on which 10 song selections were given the smooth and soulful Sweet Singing Cava-leer confection. And again in 1992 they recorded and released a memorable classic recording entitled Believe, which included the nationwide hit song, Stepped Into My Life. Once again the group was touring throughout the country.
Jesus said, he said he would fix it. And I ain't got no better sister than if it wasn't for the Lord. Tell me, what could I do? Oh, tell me what could I do? I wanna know. What could I do?
The Sweet Singing Cava-leers never reached the height of success, of which most of them would have liked to. They also had worked hard for many years to finally see the fruits of their labor pay off. As many quartets of today that was fortunate enough to cut a live up-to-date record, the Cava-leers was never fortunate to do that. Andrew Williams, Haskell Holmes, Tommy Beeson, Walter Cook, Johnny Grayson, Reverend George Easley, all are now deceased. Cook's final recording was in 1998 entitled I'll Never Forget, a re-recorded selection that was written by the late Reverend James Cleveland.
It gets so rough. It gets so rough. I have to cry sometimes. It gets so rough.
Although the Cava-leers are now in glory, their memory and music will live on forever.